pictures of flowers.
Alright, welcome back to all you beautiful camera nerds out there. It has been a minute, fam. I've just been working on a lot of commercial projects lately, trying to make money and grow my business, and I thought to myself, well, that's enough of that. Let's get back on that YouTube grind. We've got a bit of a new YouTube video set today. Hope you like it. It seems like I try a new set just about every YouTube video, so who knows? Maybe one day we'll get it right. I'm excited for this one. Today we're going to review my very first vintage camera lens. It's everyone's favorite Soviet-era lens, the Helios 44-2 f2 58mm lens. I bought mine from a Ukrainian seller for $138.60. Quick shout out just to any Ukrainians out there watching this video. I know y'all are really going through it. I know a lot of you are trying to get to America too, and I pray that you do. Either way, keep fighting, keep pushing them back. Anyway, let's talk about camera gear. As usual, I'll be reviewing the lens with both video and photo sample images, and also some night photography, so stay tuned. For this video, I'll be using my Helios 44-2 with my Canon EOS R6 Mark II. I bought my Helios lens with a Canon EF mount adapter already built on, so in that case, I'll need my trusty EF2 RF adapter. But hey, let's quickly run through a tech note that I have before I forget. This note is for getting this lens or any other vintage lens to work with a Canon EOS mirrorless camera. So you've bought a vintage lens and it's time to screw it on to your camera and test it out. But you go to press the shutter and nothing happens. What do? Go into your camera's menu system and click on the camera icon to the right of the wrench. Scroll down and select Release Shutter Without Lens and enable it. Then you should be good to go. The issue is that these mirrorless cameras are made to electronically communicate with modern lenses. So when you use an old camera that doesn't have this ability, your camera needs to be adjusted. I would recommend going back into your menu system and turning this feature back on when you go to use an electronic lens, like a Sigma 24-70mm lens, for instance. Okay, back to the action. And let's get right down to business here. In my opinion, you only buy this lens for how it renders out of focus objects, aka the bokeh, aka the vibes. Specifically, I bought this lens for three things: bokeh, the flaring and haze combination, and then for halation. And for those things, this lens mostly delivers. But to be clear, you do not buy this lens for traditional image quality. Stuff like sharpness and color accuracy are not what this lens is for. Trust me, you'll get your photos uploaded in Lightroom and zoom in around 4 times to check focus and have a stroke and die. This lens is softer than a baby's, well, everything. I know a lot of folks are looking for this lens to produce like a swirly bokeh, so let's just dive right into that next. This lens does deliver on that in my experience. With a little practice and with the right out of focus elements, like some bendy trees, for example. As you can see, the best swirly bokeh is really most evident with the background of tree branches or bushes, shot at a lower angle. The lens basically accentuates the look of shapes that are already there in the background. This is especially the case with vertical compositions that already have a lot of headroom. Also, keep in mind that I was able to get the most swirl at around f2.8, not wide open at f2. This photo is a great example too. This decorative bush in the background was already kind of droopy, and the Helios just melted it like ice cream. I took a few self-portraits also to see if I could achieve the same swirly bokeh, and yeah, it wasn't hard. Even among different kinds of trees. I kind of love this look and I can't wait to shoot more portraits like this. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. You can see without any bendy objects close enough to the background and subject, you might get something like bokeh mashed potatoes. But still, this effect paired with the absolute lack of any sharpness from this lens can make for a really pretty unique and dreamlike image. The image isn't sharp, but that's just not always a bad thing. For instance, this image of 3 little gooselings might look like nothing, but this is artistically very strong, trust me, and I cannot produce this soft a look with my regular Canon or Sigma lenses. Let's take a quick look at some night photography and the swirly bokeh situation there. Didn't quite happen in my experience. The bokeh was interesting, but not much swirl here at all. Remember, street and building lights are already round, not bendy like tree branches. So the results here are probably not worth using the lens for its bokeh alone at night. So, moral of the story, this lens will produce swirly bokeh for you most of the time. And for that alone, I think this is worth the money because again, I don't have another lens that can produce a look like this. And to me, that makes it very valuable. On that note, I think what I like most about the bokeh is just how weird and unpredictable it is. My regular lenses create an awesome, but predictable shallow depth of field. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to produce reliable images. But the fun thing about the Helios 442 is you don't exactly know what kind of bokeh you're gonna get. All this adds to really filmic looking images in my opinion. It's great. It's a roughly 50-year-old lens after all. How useful do you think you'll be after 50 years? Okay, let's talk about flaring next. My lens obviously has no hood and there's no way of knowing the exact chemical composition of the optics coating at work here. Helios seemed to change their coating formula over the decades, so who knows what's going on here, man. I will cover the history of the whole Helios brand a little bit later in the video if you're into that sort of thing. Again, I like the look, but it's definitely not for everyone. Like when you point this lens at anything, you're likely to get a sneaky little lens flare, especially at night. So if you don't want any lens flaring, keep this lens in the bag. This reminds me of the flaring in that Batman car chase with the penguin. So again, if you're in a situation where you're using this lens and you don't want any flaring at all, make sure to take the time to inspect your entire frame and make sure there aren't any there. Imagine shooting with the Helios for some interviews, for instance, and not noticing one small flare in the corner of your frame. It could easily ruin all your interview footage. I also caught some random flaring haze here in these photos, and I wasn't even pointing the camera towards the sun at all, nor was there a light bounce. That means there's a ghost. Call the boys. And take this photo of a little World War II monument. Well, it's hard to tell what's even going on here because the flaring is going so wild. Let's talk about halation next. To get a good look at the halation this lens produces, let's go back to the night photos. Sometimes it was subtle, sometimes not so much. Interesting results here, but again, inconsistent. And as a scientist, I needed more consistent data, so there was only one thing left to do. I had to find myself some neon. And pretty disappointing halation here. The photos look fine, but the neon vibes are just not there. Way too clean and clinical for my taste. This is a good example of when I probably should have just used one of my more user-friendly lenses with a Pro Mist filter, for instance, and I would have got a lot better results with this neon. But I was able to achieve some good haze in my interior images at time. Take these two video clips, for instance. This haze is great. Normally I'd have to use a hazer or that Pro Mist to achieve this effect. But I like this look out of this lens much better because of the combination of haze and softness. I'm happy to see it. I can't tell you how many times on set I've introduced a hazer and it just doesn't work because my image is just too soft to begin with. So is this lens good or did I just like it? Well, as much fun as this lens is to use, there are some cons that you should consider before buying one. As I said before, this lens does produce unpredictable results and plenty of color shifting. I like the results generally, but I also know it's not a lens that I could rely on to shoot a large number of photos that need a consistent look, like companies' headshots, for instance. Also, my lens doesn't fully screw onto my Canon EF mounts. I was totally wrong about this point. It turns out I'd been testing this lens for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd just been screwing it on the wrong way. So the lens adapter that came on my Helios 442 fits perfectly. No problems at all, actually. I'm just dumb. What I'm saying might sound a little bit strange, but trust me, you could be in a situation where you have a new piece of camera gear and integrated it into your production, and you've been just using it a little bit wrong for like years. This happens all the time. I only have a few accessories I'd recommend for this lens, and that's of course an ND filter when you're shooting video, but most importantly step-up rings because the filter size on the Helios 44-2 is small. Mine is 49mm and I have step-up rings all the way to 77mm for my Tiffin variable ND. Another thing I should recommend that's not really an accessory, but I guess it might as well be in this situation, is using this lens with a camera that has focus peaking. This lens is so soft that getting critical focus anywhere is very, very, very hard. I'm lucky enough that my Canon EOS R6 Mark II has focus peaking, and that makes a huge difference. Then lastly, I'm actually a really big history nerd, so I'm going to talk about the history of this lens for a minute if anyone's interested. I have a confession to make. I am the guy that reads all of the historical plaques that people hang up. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
Yes, give me that.
Bitch, I read them all. I have literally never passed one of these things without reading it. I think I'm sick. So, the Helios camera brand was founded in Soviet-era Russia in 1958. It was a time of great peace and prosperity. Not exactly in Russia. But to be clear, Helios made way more lenses than just the 44-2. That brand made lenses in about any focal length that you could want, from 15 to 200mm primes. According to my research, it was basically a kit lens that came on the old film cameras that you'd buy at the time. It seems the lenses far outlived the cameras, but you can still easily find both paired together for purchase. These look pretty tempting, and that's called foreshadowing. The 44 series lenses themselves are derivative of the Carl Zeiss optical formula, which I'm told is good. In general, these vintage lenses are still around today because, like most things in Mother Russia, they were built well and because they made a lot of them. Rumor has it they were coated in vodka. You know, like me. Their patent situation didn't help either, and it seems that there was a lot of borrowing designs over the years. For instance, we know that Japanese companies sold fake Helios lenses to places like Britain and the Netherlands, who then sold them to who knows over the years. No one knows what percentage of these Helios lenses out there are even authentic. Hell, mine could be fake. But I really don't know that matters a whole lot because, a lot of people were making this lens off of the same design. So I even read on some Flickr group that these lenses weren't under any kind of copyright at all. So maybe this thing goes all the way to the top. Anyway, Helios eventually sold to a Russian photography gear exporter and likely assimilated into other camera gear lines. And I wonder if Helios didn't push for stronger patents on these lenses because they probably assumed that the film cameras themselves that were bundled with this lens were the most important thing. It's all a little bit confusing and Russian, but that's what my research came to. Oh well, it's not like America can make anything better. Anyway, that's our show for today. I hope that you had fun. Like I said, there's no point in diving too deep into the Helios 442 scientifically. I usually dig up more specs and hard data from my reviews, but there's no point here. You either like the look this lens produces or you don't. And like I said, if you buy one, it's not even a guarantee that you'll get an authentic one or that it'll actually fit on your camera. Oh my gosh, I brought it up again. So again, the lens fits perfectly on my camera with the adapter already built on. Sorry for being such a dumb boy. Honestly, I can't see myself using this lens a lot for professional work. But I will definitely bring it to my shoots when I'm trying to chase imagery that's more emotional, dreamlike, or abstract. Again, what matters is that I don't have another lens that can produce images like this. And most importantly, it's just fun to use. And if it's fun to use, I am 100% more likely to go out and shoot. I own a lot of production gear, and most of it is really not very fun to use at all. So far, I'm happy with my Helios 44-2. I hope you can be happy too. Remember to put your faith in art, and I will see you next time. Peace.